What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a new episode of All In with Nate. This is my first Falcon show since the draft. This is the last time y'all see me on was the night that we drafted Michael Penix Jr. A lot has changed for the Falcons since then. They just finished their last preseason game last night. Won a good preseason game, of course. The Falcons don't play any starters in preseason, as you see. They lost 31-0. The second and third stringers played last night. That wasn't too pretty. Of course, Penix didn't play. Cousins didn't play. I was at the game last night. It wasn't really much to watch, but they asked Raheem Morris earlier today. I don't know if you guys keep up with the press conferences. He asked him about not playing starters in preseason. He said that he does not believe in playing starters in preseason, and as long as he's the Atlanta Falcons head coach, we won't be seeing him. I don't agree with it, but I mean that's what the head coach says, and we'll see. I do know one thing: we don't have a lot of depth on this roster as we would like to have. I mean, that's kind of expected. You're going from 3 years under Arthur Smith to an entirely new situation with Raheem Morris, so kind of expected that to be that way. So it's unfortunate, but of course, like I said, the Falcons will be in a decent position. Thankfully, hopefully, health doesn't have to put us in position to deal with any of that bad play that we watched the last 3 preseason games. But glad preseason's over. And I mean, it's a lot of expectations on the Falcons as we get ready to enter the season. Of course, we went in even before the recent things that came about as far as the Falcons playing. So as far as the Falcons having a better season, I mean, we all expected them to be a borderline team to make the postseason anyways, but there's a lot of expectations with the moves that has happened. We will talk about those moves, of course. And before we get into that, though, I will talk about the preseason a little bit. We did get a chance to see Michael Penix Jr. for the first game. For the ones of you that didn't get a chance to see him, I'm going to bring up the highlights from his week 1 game. Of course, he only played 3 minutes, but I mean, still, he got a chance to get into the game for the first half of the Dolphins game. And I mean, he had his ups and downs. So let me just go to, I want to show his highlights real quick for the ones of you that don't get a chance to watch preseason as much. This was this was the first drive of that game. And by the way, Casey Washington is a receiver who I think is going to make the 53. He was a 6th round pick. So be on the lookout for him to possibly make the roster. This was the bad connection right here. This would have been I think he stopped running route, to be honest with you, on that play. This was also was that Christian Blair? That's Christian Blair. I think Christian Blair is another receiver that's going to probably make the roster, if not the practice squad. He actually had a pretty good preseason. Like I said, not a lot of movement within the receivers, but I think, of course, with Rondale Moore going down for the season, and then really looking for a true number 3, I think he's going to step up. So Christian Blair, I think he's going to end up making the roster. As you see, that's one of his highlights from that week 1 preseason game. He actually had a couple of good drives. This was a bad overthrow. He probably had that one on the money if he get that ball down. But the one thing I do like about Michael Penix Jr., he definitely reads the field well. I do like that about him. The good thing is he gets to sit for a year. I think if he didn't get pressured right here, this might have been a touchdown to Carlos Washington, who is another player that's kind of on that bubble for the Falcons. So we're going to be interested to see how that plays out. I don't know who's going to make the running back 3 between him or Jason McClellan, the 6th round pick out of Alabama. So I'm not sure which one of those guys are going to be in that spot. So that's going to be something to look out for too. But these are just some of his highlights because he didn't get a chance to play much in preseason. I was kind of hoping it was going to be a touchdown to John Fitzpatrick. But I mean, they got a good drive out of that. So once again, he showed some good things about him. Again, we may not see much of him depending on the health of Kirk Cousins. We probably won't see much of him until next season. But this was a positive start. I mean, that's the one good thing that you can say for Michael Penix Jr. You got a chance to get some type of reps. I wish you could have got more in preseason. But like I said again, this was a mishap by Chase McClellan. But again, like I said, he got a chance to show a little bit. It wasn't much. So he was just some of his highlights. Again, he only played like majority. He played like a decent amount of the first half against Miami. But like I said, as a rookie quarterback, I really wish he could have got more reps because, I mean, he's going to be on the bench for a decent amount of the season, depending on the health of Kirk Cousins. So, but again, I think Casey Washington is going to be wide receiver 5 or 6 when they come out with the final 53. We'll be interested to see how that play out. But again, I didn't want to show the audio, and they have to cancel me on YouTube. You know how it goes. So, this is just some more of the highlights. This might be the last drive he had. And that's the Cordero Hodge, who, of course, he didn't play much in preseason either because, I mean, he's already set to make the roster. So, again, it was a good first start of the Michael Penix era as far as for him. He got a chance to get some reps, but not really much movement there. So, again, I wanted to also show where head coach Raheem Morris discussed why, because last week we played Baltimore. Taylor Heineke got the reps for those last 2 games. I do think Taylor Heineke will be getting cut. I don't think we're going to see Taylor Heineke after this week. So hopefully we can maybe flip him for a late pick or either just cut ties with him. Because let's be honest, he's not going to be no higher than QB2 on the board, of course, as you all know. So let me pop in here and show what Raheem Morris said about Michael Penix Jr., why he didn't play him after the Baltimore game. Let me go full screen. Now, this I actually will play the audio. So here's what Raheem Morris said about not playing Michael Penix Jr. last week.
Really fired about the guys that played on the back end of our roster today, getting a chance to see them guys go play. They play physical, they play tough. They'll make those later decisions for Terry and myself and our organization. Very tough on us and getting people who you decide to keep on the rosters. Obviously, we got another week next week and looking forward to it. Looking forward to a great week of practice. Torrey, it was all about that, right? Last week, we wanted to get him out there and get a feel for what he was in live game, which we kind of already knew. Wanted to see him be able to answer questions, talk about it on the sideline, go out there and execute, make mistakes and know what to do. Like when he looked the wrong way, getting right to the check down. He did a lot of those things a lot, but it took a hit last week, should have changed the protection. He's able to clearly communicate those things. I mean, we seen enough last week of Michael Penix and the live stuff, and now we had the chance to mitigate him in practice. And, we give him a bunch of live stuff out there in practice that you do everything that you would do in a game other than get hit. But, we feel really good where we're at with Michael. We feel really good where we're at with the other guys that we set, and we treated that the same way. But Mike showed us last week enough that we don't have to play him in the preseason.
As you hear, that's what he said. He said he didn't want to play another game of him in preseason, and it makes me feel like they have more of a value on Michael Penix Jr. in the event Kirk Cousins isn't 100%. I think Kirk Cousins have stated he'll be 100% by the time week 1 kicks off. So that is an interesting take on that. But, of course, he's a part of our future. So, I mean, again, I will be the first one to tell you on draft night, I did not like the move on draft night. Not so much because I don't like the quarterback. If you've been following my streams for months, Michael Penix Jr. was my number 1 guy that I wanted at QB at the position that we were at number 8 going into this offseason. But that was before we had picked up Kirk Cousins, gave him the 4-year, $180 contract, which, of course, I explained in a previous show that contract, you kind of going to look at that as 2 years. Kirk Cousins is the right now guy. You may see Michael Penix Jr. step into the starting role in 2 years from now. He could. It depends on the health of Kirk Cousins and the production of Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins is who Kirk Cousins have been throughout his career, he won't see the field for 2 years. Because when you get to that year number 3 of Kirk Cousins' contract, the money is way too expensive. You already got a guy on your bench. And as they stated after the draft, they did not plan to be picking that high again. And, I mean, once we talk about some of these other moves, you'll understand why they're feeling that they're not going to be picking that high again, which, again, I didn't agree with at the time, but they filled particular needs that I thought they didn't draft well on draft night eventually. So kudos to Michael Penix Jr. again. He may get reps this season. Then again, he may not. It really depends on Kirk Cousins. That's what it comes down to when it's all said and done. But to get to, let me hit the comments real quick. Doug checking in. What's going on, Doug? He said we better tackle. Yeah, we better be tackling for sure come week 1. I totally agree with you 100% because Arthur Smith had a little slick comment talking about how the offense was struggling for Pittsburgh and then popped out and scored 40 points. That man has scored 40 points one time in the Falcon 3 years as a head coach. So not trying to hear that. I want to beat him bad. But the Falcons did make a couple of moves over the last couple of weeks. They actually made late moves for this team, and they picked up in a draft. They picked up in a trade. They traded for Patriots veteran defensive pass rusher Matthew Judon, who is 32. He's going into this season. He's in a contract year. He wanted a contract from New England. New England was not willing to pay him at the time. So the best thing they did was they cut bait. They got a third from us for him, which, again, the Falcons entered the draft with no solution at pass rush. And the fact that they did get a pass rusher is a great thing for this Falcon defense, because that was my number one concern entering this offseason. We did not have a legitimate pass rusher. Of course, you still got Grady Jarrett. As far as to me, Grady needs to go back in the middle. You have Judon now to rush on the outside, but it also depends on Jimmy Lake's scheme. Jimmy Lake is the new defensive coordinator. He is a clear 3-4 pass rush. Our scheme is going to be 3-4. Last year we were 4-3. The year before it was 4-2-4-5 or something like that. But again, the problem is this is the third year in a new defense. We got pieces. Don't get me wrong. We have talent on this team. However, you're changing defenses for the third time. I think they need to put Grady back in the middle. Him and let him and Ayamata clock the run lanes. You now got a pass rush in Judon. You need to develop your young guys in Arnold Ebiketie. Maybe give Lorenzo Carter some reps. I hate Braylon Trice got hurt for the season. He was a third round pick that we took this year, so he won't get an opportunity to really play much per se. So that's going to be something to see. Can the Falcons follow that up this season, and see if some of the younger guys can emerge as pass rushers and all those different things that the Falcons defense is going to need. That was a great addition. The other addition that the Falcons made this offseason was picking up Justin Simmons, the veteran Pro Bowl safety, out from the Denver Broncos. They actually cut him right before free agency started, which sadly, the man sat on the market for months. But as you get closer to the season and a caliber player like a Justin Simmons, you get to pick where you're going. And to pair up with Jesse Bates, he makes this by far the best safety unit that this Atlanta Falcon team has ever had. Maybe the closest group we've had that were good together was William Moore and Thomas Deku, and I was not a fan of Thomas Deku. So the fact that you got an opportunity to get these two guys together is a great addition. You now have some help for AJ Terrell, who also just re-signed got a 4-year, $80 million extension, who he deserved that contract. So now you got your 3 or 4 secondary spots locked. So there's some potential on that defense. I still like where we sit at linebacker. I think we got a decent amount of depth at linebacker. We still got Nate Lamon's back. He's healthy. Caden Ellis is back. They're high on Troy Anderson. I'm kind of riding the fence with Troy Anderson. I'm not going to lie to you, because I've seen his job. He's had guys come in and do better than him at his position. So, of course, he added a 5th-round pick in J.D. Bertrand. The Falcons have some pieces that you can build upon on as far as linebackers per se. But the issue that they're also running into is you got a couple of guys playing the linebacker position that just is more so of pass rushers. I want to see how Lake and Morris work that around. I want to see how that works when the season gets here. And that actually ties into a fan question I got off of the air before I even came on here. And the question was, with the new additions, how do I think the Atlanta Falcons defense can be? This defense has the potential to be a top 15 unit, maybe top 10, depending if everything falls the way it needs to fall. These guys can easily be a top 15 unit, 10 to 15 unit, if those breaks make, if everything falls the way that it should. Because for us, you now have 3 of your 4 issues in your secondary addressed. You got your safety tandem ready. You got AJ Terrell. The concern may be your second corner, which is Clark Phillips. Clark had some good moments his rookie year, but you really don't have a set cornerback too. But I mean, if Judon and the group up front can create some pressure, you run the risk of this defense being much better than you expected. So if I'm the Falcons, you got something that you can work with. Now, as far as like I said, the linebackers were good last year. I don't really have much issues with that. We actually have a decent amount of depth on the line as far as run stoppers. Our biggest concern was the pass rushers last year. So that's one thing that the Falcons are going to have to be paying attention to in this defense. So we'll see early because this group's going to get tested. You got out the gate. Pittsburgh is not the most talented offense, but you got that high-powered Philadelphia offense week 2 on Monday Night Football. You got the Super Bowl champs coming into the building week 3 against the Chiefs. So you're going to see them early. New Orleans is going to throw the ball. You still got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and company, or you got a lot of talented groups on offense that's coming in early. So the defense is going to get tested early. But that's where I kind of stand with the defense. So we'll see. We're going to learn about them a lot early on, especially these first couple of weeks. But let's see. The next thing I want to talk about. But yeah, the additions of those 2 guys make this defense ready to compete now. To me, them 2 changed the game, especially in that backfield. Because going into last draft, I was not a big fan of the safety position opposite of Jesse Bates. Richie Grant is not a good strong safety. You now bring in Justin Simmons to take that spot. So the benefit's going to be you now got 2 basically quarterbacks of the defense out there on the field at the same time. Going to be fun to see how that secondary comes together. As far as the pass rush, Judon even stated that he's not going to push for a contract for the Falcons yet because we don't know who he is and he wants to earn it. And I respect that 100% because a guy that is coming into a team that has no clue about him, that is 100% respected. Now, we'll see how that plays out on the field, but I look forward to what those guys can bring to this team. I want to show the depth chart real quick and show kind of where I know we haven't made our 53-man roster just yet, but I kind of want to show where it looks for right now, just so you can all kind of see where the Falcons going into the season. Of course, as you see, Kirk Cousins is the starter. Michael Penix Jr. is the backup. Of course, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algiers at running back. I don't know who's going to be running back 3. To be honest with you guys, I really don't know. Because both of them have had flashes in the preseason. Of course, you got Drake, Mooney, and Ray McCloud. Those are going to be your 1, 2, 3. I think Chris Blair makes the roster, and so do Casey Washington. I think the Falcons might carry 6 wide receivers. Of course, Kyle Pitts is your starting tight end. I think Fitzpatrick and Warner make the roster, of course. Fullback Rob Burns, he's out right now. Of course, I don't think the offensive line changes at all. I think it's going to be the same group from last year. They were actually pretty decent last year. Now, as you see, they are listed as a 3-4 defense entering the season. Grady Jarrett is listed as a DN. I think this needs to be changed up, and he needs to go inside. You got some pieces there. You got David Onyemata, who was a really good run stopper before he got injured for us last year. Rook is going to be a pretty decent guy at he's a solid rookie. I think he's going to surprise some people as the season goes along. Zach Harrison is listed as the other defensive end. You got Taquan Graham backing him up, who I think is kind of on a bubble. Brandon Doyle is going to make the roster. Now, the issue is going to be, how do the Falcons work this around? You may see Prince Emily and Tommy Togiai, guys like that might go to the practice squad. So this is not your full group. Again, you got Matthew Judon, you got Arnold Ebiketie. They're both listed as the outside linebackers. They're going to be the pass rushing linebackers. As you see, Lorenzo Carter's his backup. I think Arnold Ebiketie can be unleashed. He need to get in that lab with Matthew Judon this season. As far as the linebacker core, you got Caton and you got Troy Anderson as our listed starters, with JT Bertrand and Nate Lambert backing them up. I think that group is going to be what we're going to see this season. As you see, A.J. Terrell, of course, is CB1. They got Mike Hughes as the second corner. I'm not really the biggest Mike Hughes fan. That's just me. I still wish we would kind of address that issue as we enter the season. But, I mean, I guess they're going to see what they can do. I would love to get a veteran just to bring in and see what we can get out of them. But I think AJ, Mike Hughes, I think Kevin King does make the roster. I think they can rotate him between safety and corner. Clark Phillips, he will be on the roster as well. D. Alford, of course, he'll make the roster. He's probably going to be considered as the slot or the nickelback. He is listed as that. I would love to see Antonio Hamilton and then everybody else as far as the corner room per se. Now, potentially, Natron Brooks could be a guy to watch here. Natron Brooks could beat out Antonio Hamilton Sr. for that corner spot because he actually had a good preseason. He was one of the bright spots of the team this preseason. Of course, as you see, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates, they're the strong safety and free safety. Richie Grant will be the backup to Justin Simmons. DeMarco Hellams is actually injured right now. I hope he gets well. So I'm sure, of course, he's going to be a part of the Falcons once he gets healthy. As far as the rest of these safeties, I don't know if any of the other ones will make it. Maybe Michael Abernathy stays on the roster, but other than that, not really much to see there. Of course, Bradley Pinion and Yongo Gu, who, by the way, needs to tighten up. He had some misses in this preseason, especially in the Baltimore game, the game that probably should have been won by the Falcons in preseason this year. Avery Williams is considered as the kick returner. It would have been Rondale Moore, but he's out for the season. Ray McLeod is considered as the punt returner. So that's kind of the state of the Falcons depth chart right now. Of course, we're going to get to the 53-man roster. I think they're going to make the cuts by Tuesday. I think that's what the deadline potentially is. So we'll be watching out for that. But let me see. I had some more questions I wanted to touch. And the question was, what do a successful season look like for the Falcons this year? So my personal expectations for the Falcons is this. Well, how I'll put this. I think the ceiling is not the ceiling. For me, the Falcons at minimum got to have a winning season. And I'm not talking about 9-8. You got to win at least 10 games. Winning at least 10 games shows that the moves that were made were beneficial to this team going forward. Because you don't make that splash like you've made with Simmons and Judon and Kirk Cousins and don't win certain ball games. You've heard me talk about the fact that the Falcons' lack of a pass rush lost 3 games last year. The lack of QB lost games last year. So these are 2 positions that you addressed. The division should be over. No disrespect to the Saints or the Buccaneers. The Panthers are rebuilding. But this division should be over if everything breaks right. The next thing for me is you win the division, win a home playoff game. A division title and a home playoff win, or a playoff win in general, let's say you don't win the division and you still make the postseason. To me, that's the standard that where I want to be at. Don't get me wrong. Fans may say You don't see Super Bowl. You don't see deep run. You don't see contender. I'm not going to say that I don't. What I'm doing is you're setting an expectation for where you are right now. Because, again, you cannot have a strong expectation when you win 7 straight seasons of having a losing record. You need to get back over 500. You need to get back in the playoffs, and then potentially 2025. And I'm not saying that anything can't happen. The NFL is crazy. Who knows? And then it's kind of a weird year for the NFC. You got the Lions going to be in the mix. You got the Niners, who they're in a weird spot right now. The Niners roster is still one of the best in the league. They should, if on paper, they should run back through the NFC. However, the game's got to be played. Philly has a really good squad. You never can count out Dallas. Green Bay's on the rise. Chicago's in conversation. So when you look at the situation for the Falcons, you are considered the best team in your division on paper. You should get a postseason win. Then you start looking at yourself. You measure yourself up against the rest of the NFC contenders. And then that's where you start to say, where do the Falcons stand at that point? So for me, if you can get to the divisional playoff round as a division winner, you have set a positive standard for where you are going forward. That's what it looks like for me. Anything other than that or that's better than that is a bonus. But to me, that should be your at minimum standard. By the way, Falcons need to step it up because let's be honest, they have sold season tickets out for the first time since the Mike Vick era. Think about the winning squads we had under Matt Ryan. Couldn't sell all season tickets out. We sold it out this year. So that lets you know. Now, don't get me wrong. The Falcons have some very, very good home games this year. We opened up the season with the Steelers week 1. We got the Cowboys coming here November 3rd. We got the Chiefs coming here week 3. So the Falcons have some good ball games that are to come. So don't get me wrong. That played a factor too in why our season tickets sold out. However, your fans still are excited about the season coming up. But again, you have to set the standard from the start because fans are going to determine how good you are based on how you start. You live in a city where these fans will ride behind the Falcons as long as the Falcons show up on the field. You don't want to get a sold-out Mercedes-Benz for the first 4 to 5 weeks, and then you be underachieving, and then by the time we get to after the Dallas game, the next game will be the Chargers December 1st in Atlanta. You don't want to get to that Chargers game and the crowd starts to fall off because you're underperforming. So it's key that the Falcons get off to a good start. Regardless of what you deal with in the first 5 weeks, you got to have a good start if you plan on keeping the buzz of this city behind you. Because let's be honest, the buzz is up in this city, especially after the Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon moves. You have to strike on your momentum at this point in the season. And as I mentioned the season, let me bring up the schedule so I can just give you guys a idea of why I'm stressing the first 5 weeks of the season. Let me pull this schedule up. Hold on, give me a second. I want to get a good schedule to put up here before I do it. Let me see, can I make this full screen? But this is a schedule wallpaper. I'm going from the Falcon website, and I'm about to pull it up on the screen so you can kind of walk through this with me too. This is actually a wallpaper, but it's the schedule. So, of course, we're done with the 3 preseason games. The preseason is over. So, week 1, it is a home game against the Pittsburgh Steelers here in Atlanta. That's the first game of the season. Week 2, Monday Night Football at Philadelphia. This is our first Monday night game since, I believe, 2019, I believe. It was our last Monday night game. It's been a minute since we've been on Monday Night Football. So That's one to be paying attention to for real. The next game is the Sunday night game. So we got back-to-back night games. We got a Sunday nighter in Atlanta against the Chiefs. This is our first time seeing Patrick Mahomes in 4 years. We almost pulled an upset 4 years ago with Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris was actually the interim coach that year. I don't know if y'all remember. AJ Terrell dropped a pick in the end zone that would have won the game for us that game. We just couldn't hold on and win. So it's our first time seeing them since then. You got New Orleans at 1 o'clock, week 4 at home in Atlanta. Week 5, you got a Thursday night game, 4 days after the Saints game. You got the Buccaneers here in Atlanta on Thursday night. Of course, that game will be locally aired, but of course, for the nation, you'll see it on Amazon and whatever areas carry Thursday night football. That alone, that I just named on before I even touched the second half of the schedule. In those first 5 weeks, we will learn a lot about this ball club. I said before the season, when I did the schedule show back in May, the Falcons cannot go any lower than 2-3 in the first 5 weeks. That's your flat bottom. It's 2-3 in the first 5 weeks. You go any lower than that, you dug yourself a hole that you may not dig yourself out of to go into the second half. But if you find yourself at 3-2 or better, this season might be one for the books. So the first 5 weeks is going to tell us a lot about the Atlanta Falcons. After that, they go on the road. That's a 4 o'clock game. That's going to be a 4:25 start at home on the road at Carolina. And then you got a 1 o'clock start at home against the Seahawks week 7. You get the Bucs at Tampa on at a 1 o'clock start on the 27th of October. Week 9, you got the Cowboys. That's the Cowboy game. Right now, that's a 1 o'clock game. But depending on how the teams are at that point in the season, do not be surprised if that game gets flexed. So if both teams are playing good ball by that time of the season, that start is saying it's 1 o'clock as of now. It could change to a 4 o'clock start. So depending on how the seasons are going, the Falcons then follow up that game by going to New Orleans to end their Falcons Saints matchups of the season. That's a 1 o'clock start. Week 11 is going to be at Denver. That's also a 1 o'clock start. That's a 4 o'clock start. And then we got a bye week. After the bye, the Falcons get the Chargers in Atlanta. You got the Vikings at Minnesota. The benefit of playing that game at that time in the stadium, in an inside stadium, you don't have to worry about the elements. You go to another game. You got your second Monday night game against the Raiders in Las Vegas. That's December 16th. You come back home. You get the Giants at home. That's going to be right before Christmas. Week 17 and 18, you're going to the Commanders. Go see your old friend Dan Quinn. And then week 18, you got Carolina at home. The Falcons have an opportunity to run some wins off that second half of the year. But your first half, you gotta come out swinging. So again, you don't want to underestimate nobody. You got your hands full to start the season, and I'm looking forward to what the Falcons can do to start this season off. And they got to get off to a good start because I'm telling you, this fan base, they're excited. You don't want that excitement to diminish as we get closer to this season. But let me go to some of the other questions that I have. Now that I've discussed the schedule, is this a make or break year for Kyle Pitts? For me personally, it is. Kyle Pitts is in year 4. This is the 4th season. This is the first quarterback that he has legitimately had. Now, Matt Ryan was at the end of his career, got him to 1,000 yards, got him to a Pro Bowl. Kirk Cousins, one thing you know about Kirk Cousins, Kirk's going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the football. You can guarantee that Kirk Cousins is going to throw the football if he does absolutely nothing else. He's going to throw that football. His tight ends typically eat. You had T.J. Hawkinson who balled behind Kirk Cousins. You had Kyle Rudolph who used to ball with Kirk Cousins. Kirk is going to get him the ball, and no disrespect to T.J. Hawkinson because he's one of the better tight ends in the league. Kyle Pitts might be his most athletic tight end he's had in his career. So this is the opportunity for Kyle Pitts and even a Drake London to ball out with a quarterback that's going to be pass first. You know he's going to throw you the ball. So if this is a time for Kyle Pitts to show out, it's going to be this year. I personally think Kyle Pitts is going to have a good year. I think he's going to be a sleeper fantasy tight end. Hey, for you all that play fantasy football, keep that in mind. I'm telling you, he's going to be a sleeper for you. You're going to wish you got him. But that's my opinion on Kyle Pitts. The next question I have was what concerns about this team currently. I say two things. I'm going to say health and probably that other corner spot. So health is key. We lost Rondale Moore before the season. We lost Jakeem Grant in week 1. He signed him maybe days prior to him getting hurt. DeMarco Helms is recovering from an injury right now. So this team got to stay healthy because this is a front-loaded roster with not a lot of depth behind it. That's another reason that we went 0-3. Yes, preseason don't matter, and it does matter at the same time. You want to see the depth that you have on your team. There's not a lot of depth behind the starters for the Falcons. That's the concern that you have to think about entering the season. And other than that, roster set up well. But again, injuries can throw everything off if it doesn't go the way that you should have it go. Quarterback don't concern me because even if Kirk is not 100%, you have Michael Penix Jr. There's a reason you drafted him if this Kirk experience do not work. So at the end of the day, you have that situated. The reason I'm concerned about corner 2 and corner 3 is because don't get me wrong, I love Clark Fields. I think he's a talented guy. I think one of the things that hurt him was his size. I think that's the reason he fell to the 4th round. Mike Hughes, I'm not a fan of. I feel that the Falcons if the Falcons had average play at corner, this defense will be locked down as far as the secondary. But the other corner position could be a person of target early on, especially when we face your Russell Wilsons and your Jalen Hurts and your Patrick Mahomes in the first 3 weeks. They could pick on the Mike Hughes, the Clark Fields. So those guys will have to come ready. They may surprise me, but that's my concern for those guys right now. Young Hoku missed a couple of preseason field goals, so hopefully he has that together. But other than that, he should be good. I'm trying to think what other position could be a concern. I'm going to be intrigued to see how the opposite of Matthew Judon is going to perform because, of course, Judon's going to be your pass rusher with no question. Let's see, can Zach Harrison or Arnold Ebiketie or one of those guys step up and really make a big impact in this new 3-4 scheme. So I just want to say that's probably my concern about this team currently. But that's the questions that I was asked. I appreciate the question that I got asked. But until next time, this is just a little quick preview. I want to just throw make this show for you guys. I haven't done it in a while, just to kind of tell y'all where I stand with this Falcon Ball Club as we are less than 2 weeks into the season. The game, literally, we are 1 week to as of tomorrow, we will be 14 days from kickoff. We're actually 14 days from kickoff now, but you know what I mean. But that's really where I stand with the Falcons right now. I will be back on here doing some more Falcon preview leading up to the season, probably the week of the season. I'll go schedule by schedule and give my final regular season schedule prediction. So until then, I appreciate you all that's tuned in, that's been following my page for a long period of time. Glad to be back as far as doing more Falcon stuff, and I'm going to be doing more college and NFL stuff, so be on the lookout for that. But until then, this has been an episode of All In with Nate. You all have a great rest of your evening.